Irishman named Joe Phelan has had a very unusual career path. He quit his office job to become a farmer. He couldn't make a living doing that the way his family used to, so he bought 7 alpacas, sold alpaca wool socks and toys, and offered people the chance to interact with them. But Phelan found his true calling when he saw the kind of positive impact the animals were having on people with special needs, autism, Down syndrome, others who could benefit from animal therapy. And now he has a business with 11 employees, 71 alpacas, and endless smiles on the faces of people he shares them with. Phelan describes the animals as relaxing. They're gentle. They hum. Many folks don't know that about alpacas. And at a nursing home that the farmer and 2 of his furry workers visited recently, he thinks they triggered a lot of memories for elderly people there who grew up on farms. A form of animal therapy wrapped in the warmth and softness of wool. We're taking a field trip back to the farm later today on The World from A to Z. Thank you to everyone watching around the world. My name is Carl Azus. Rescuers in Southeast Asia are combing through rubble, sometimes by hand, in a frantic search for survivors in the nation of Myanmar and neighboring Thailand. The region was struck by a magnitude 7.7 earthquake on Friday. Its epicenter was in southern Myanmar, a country also known as Burma. Because of its strength and relatively shallow location, the tremor's effects were felt far and wide in the country. An aftershock of magnitude 6.4 came 12 minutes later, and others have been felt since. Though officials said Sunday that at least 1,700 people had died, hundreds are still missing in the affected nations. Aid and medical supplies are on the way in from other countries, but one thing that could complicate rescue efforts in Myanmar is the civil war it's been fighting since the military took power from the civilian government in 2021. Meanwhile, Will Ripley reports from Thailand, where a high-rise building in the capital collapsed while dozens of construction workers were inside. There were at least 8 survivors in the rubble, but most of the others remain unaccounted for.
Here in Bangkok, hundreds of miles from the epicenter of this massive earthquake, there is a major recovery operation that's been continuing really around the clock. Behind those gates, you've seen a steady flow of volunteers going in and out. There was heavy machinery operating earlier, although as they get closer to that big pile there, they're still primarily digging by hand, trying not to disturb the rubble too much in the hopes that they might be able to find some survivors. They believe there are around 100 people stuck inside there. They had detected possible signs of life, but throughout the daytime hours on Saturday, they did not find anybody who was still alive. That has not stopped family members from gathering here, waiting to see if maybe their loved ones are among those who survived. And if this is the situation hundreds of miles from the epicenter, one can only imagine the horrors that are being experienced by so many people closer to where this earthquake hit in Myanmar. I'm Will Ripley reporting in Bangkok, Thailand.
On this date in world history. When people think of Paris, they often think of this, the rising wrought iron landmark that was inaugurated on March 31st, 1889. Gustave Eiffel's 984-foot tower, built for that year's World Exhibition in Paris, was controversial. Some critics called it an eyesore, and others said it wouldn't last. It became one of the most famous monuments on Earth. This was the date in 1906 when the Intercollegiate Athletic Association of the United States formed up. Its goals to make college sports safer and set consistent rules for them across the board. The IAAUS later became the National Collegiate Athletic Association, the NCAA, and started hosting national sports championships. And on March 31st, 1991, the Warsaw Pact came to an end. It was a Cold War military alliance established in 1955 between the Soviet Union and its allies in Eastern Europe. But by 1989, communism had crumbled in much of the alliance, the Soviet Union had weakened, and would itself dissolve in late 1991 as the Cold War concluded.
History isn't only in textbooks, it's all around you. At Educational Travel Adventures, we take students beyond the classroom and out into the world. Your adventure starts here.
Upward and out. On average, how much milk does a dairy cow produce each day? 1 pint, 2 quarts, 2 gallons, 7 gallons. When a dairy cow is lactating, it can produce 7 gallons or more daily.
Whether they're dairy or beef farmers, vegetable farmers, fruit or peanut farmers, they make up the oldest workforce in America, according to the U.S. Senate Committee on Aging. And as many members of this crucial industry get closer to retirement age, some are asking who's going to take their place. There are a number of agricultural programs that are working to train farming's next generation. Ivan Rodriguez reports on one of them.
For more than 100 years, Mark Israel's family grew peanuts on their South Georgia farm. Until now.
The peanut industry in this part of the world's dying.
He says the last couple of years came with a lot of labor, but little to show for it. This year, though peanut planted acres in the U.S. and Georgia are expected to hold steady, farmers aren't expected to make the same profit, according to the University of Georgia's agricultural forecast. Plus,
I'm close to retirement.
Israel is one of many farmers across the country approaching retirement age. In fact, 40% of farmland in the U.S. is owned by farmers 65 and older. Over the next 20 years, it's expected that around 350 million acres of farmland will change hands. Although the country is in need of new farmers, the industry is anything but easy for starting a new business.
Again, cash is king.
These new farmers are getting the foundation they need through the University of Georgia Extension's Journeyman Farmer Certificate Program.
You have to be a soil scientist. You have to be an administrator. You have to be an employer. You have to do all of these extra things aside from actually knowing how to grow.
One of those students is Shantia Warren.
I come from a family of sharecroppers, my grandmother's grandparents, so technically I'm the 4th generation Black female owner of this land.
Warren's 75-year-old mother planted the first 48 pecan trees with her own hands. After her mother's death, she went on to plant dozens more to commemorate her ancestors. She's in this program to not only learn how to run a successful farm, but pass down what she learns.
I'm really hoping and wanting my little cousins, my nieces, my nephews to come help me on the farm, but also learn what they need to learn to continue the legacy of our family.
In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
Wabash is both a river and a city in Indiana. It's also the namesake of Wabash Middle School, where Mr. Maslin's class is with us from the Hoosier State. Hello to the Apaches. Next up is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Washington High School is there, where the Warriors are watching in Mr. Bradbury's class. Great to see y'all in the Mount Rushmore State. And we'll wrap with the Trojans of James Island Charter High School. We see Mr. Davis's class online in Charleston in the Palmetto State of South Carolina.
Take a look at a quirky one-legged robot engineered to stick a landing on a branch just like a leaping squirrel. Biology and engineering students at UC Berkeley first studied the jumping and landing patterns of squirrels, which they say apply natural braking maneuvers to stop on their intended targets so deftly. They then designed Salto, their own bouncing bot, to use a springy step and balancing flywheel to leap, land, and level itself in a single bound, just like its nutty counterpart. The high-flying feat was chronicled in the journal Science Robotics, and the university says it's a big step towards bigger possibilities, like using the leaping bots in construction, environmental applications, and maybe even space exploration.
Finally, a story of buried treasure. Back in the 1930s, during the Great Depression, a man started buying gold coins, first as a stable investment, then as a collector hobby as he and his wife traveled the world. They gathered 15,000 coins, some dating back hundreds of years, but because they lived in Europe, the man packed and buried the treasure to hide it from the Nazis, and it stayed underground for more than 5 decades until his wife decided it was time to retrieve them. Now, they're being sold off in auctions over the next few years, with some experts saying their overall value is more than $100 million. That's a nice chunk of change that's anything but chump change, to coin a phrase. And even if you don't give a flip for coin collecting because you can't make heads or tails of it, my 2 cents is that there's more than a penny for your thoughts if you test your mettle by going for the gold in a hobby that literally pays for itself with any buyer who's a coin artist. I'm Carl Azus for The World from A to Z, and you mean the world to me.